Hey folks, Erick Stakelbeck here. Welcome to the Watchman Newscast live stream. And man, I apologize. We're a little bit later today, but I had a late day of filming. A lot of good stuff for my nightly broadcast show. It's called Stakelbeck Tonight, of course. You can see it every night, weeknight, Monday through Friday on TBN, the world's largest Christian television network, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, with a re-air each night at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So be sure to check us out there. And if you miss it, you can get clips from the show on our Stakelbeck Tonight YouTube channel at Stakelbeck Tonight. Those are your programming notes, your marching orders. And it appears that the Houthis in Yemen have some brand new marching orders. And folks, I had to do a double take at first. And by the way, I hope everyone had a great weekend. Happy Monday. And what a way to start talking about the Houthis. I had to do a double take, as I said, invading Israel. Wait a minute. Hold up. Back up. The Houthis, who don't really have a ground force to speak of, a quote unquote conventional army, number one, and number two, are located at least 1,000, maybe even a bit further, 1,000 miles south of the state of Israel. Now, Eilat, the beautiful resort city, is the southernmost point in Israel, right on the Red Sea there. But if you go 1,000 miles down south, that Red Sea coast, Yemen hugs the Red Sea coast, of course, including the capital of Sana'a. And that's the main power base for the Iran-backed Houthi rebels. So you might say, wait a minute, how on earth would the Houthis invade Israel? They don't immediately border Israel. Hamas, of course, invaded Israel on October 7th, 2023. But yeah, they directly border Israel, sadly. So they poured right over the border. Over the years, we've seen some cross-border incursions over the Lebanon border from Hezbollah terrorists. We've seen some shenanigans and much more than that across the Syrian border. Of course, Judea, Samaria, the biblical heartland, the world calls it the West Bank. The Bible calls it Judea and Samaria, so that's what we call it. We've seen cross nonsense out of there, crossing into Israeli cities, towns, etc. I'm saying all that to say, if you're going to do like a long range ground invasion, if you're a long distance away from a nation and you want to conduct a ground invasion, that takes months of planning, getting assets on the ground, etc. And even Hamas, look, which was not a nation state, a terror group, that October 7th massacre took, sadly, months of planning, logistics, etc. So where does this headline come from then? From JNS, the Jewish News Syndicate, a great publication. The Houthis are training for an October 7th style invasion of Israel. Again, the Houthis, who are at least 1,000 miles away from the Jewish state. The planned attack has been dubbed Al-Aqsa Flood. That's the same name Hamas used for the massacres that sparked the Gaza war on October 7th. Al-Aqsa, of course, the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which sits atop the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. The jihadis of the world covet it. Let's get more because, folks, honestly, I'm curious to know more about this reported Houthi plan to invade Israel. How do they pull that off just geographically and logistically? Let's dig into it. I'm just reading this straight off my phone. Yemen's Iranian-backed Houthi rebels are reportedly training for their own October 7th style invasion of Israel. The terror group recently completed the training of its third cohort of elite operatives for a planned invasion it has dubbed Al-Aqsa Flood, according to Israel Hayom, and also JNS reported, as I mentioned. The name is the same, of course, as the one Hamas used for its October 7, 2023 invasion of southern Israel. The IDF did not respond to requests for comment, but the report stated that Israel was monitoring the threat from the Houthis. The article included a YouTube video showing Houthi terrorists training on obstacle courses and at a shooting range that featured the flags of Israel, the United States, and the United Kingdom. This is no surprise, by the way, that those three flags are sharing the same space at a Houthi training session, because the Houthis are an arm, a proxy of the Iranian regime. And when Iran talks about death to Israel, death to America and death to the UK are also always close behind. It's a package deal for the Iranian regime and its proxies. They're not just devoted to the destruction of the world's one and only Jewish state. And every Jew living from Texas to Tel Aviv to Toronto, it goes beyond that. It goes really to kind of the symbols of Western freedom. The United States, of course, today, the UK, not anymore. And we'll dig into that more in a minute, perhaps. President Trump was there today and called them out on freedom of speech or lack thereof. But the UK was seen as a symbol of the West, obviously, for centuries, really. So it's a package deal for the Iranian regime and its proxies. Now, there's not, okay, we've got the obstacle course and we've got the training and everything. And they're talking, are the Houthis, about invading Israel, Al-Aqsa flood. But beyond that, we don't have many more details at all, really. But here's more, because it's a broader strategical shift, we could say, for the Houthis. And number one, we don't have a lot of logistical information, how they plan to do this. I mean, the most likely scenario, I'm thinking, would be very simple. Well, not so simple, I should say. But in their calculus, Houthi terrorists, elite Houthi operatives, would probably make their way to, say, Lebanon or perhaps some other neighboring country somehow, and then mount some kind of incursion into Israel. Invasion is a strong word. I don't think you'd see thousands of Houthis flooding over the border like Hamas. Those Hamas terrorists actually lived across the border in Gaza. Could you see these are elite, quote unquote, so-called elite Houthi forces? Are we talking Houthi commandos, if such a term exists in their terminology, coming over the border somehow for some kind of limited terror attack? Okay, that's, God forbid, by the way, but that's more plausible. Again, invasion may be an overstatement. They may be thinking, we'll send a few of our minions over the border. We've seen this in the past. Hezbollah in Lebanon, for instance, sheltering Hamas terrorists and other Palestinian terrorists. Those Palestinian terrorists would attack out of Lebanon, and Hezbollah would say, we didn't do it. We have plausible, I call it implausible, deniability. But at the end of the day, they provided safe harbor, perhaps training, weapons. And they said, hey, we didn't pull the trigger. It was them. Is that the situation? Could the Houthis somehow make their way to some nation bordering Israel and do that under the cover and with the assistance of Iranian proxies? Perhaps. Again, God forbid. But it's tough to see how they'd pull off an invasion unless this was something naval. They come up the Red Sea coast, but you'd have to think that the Israeli Navy would blow them out of the water, and it would not escape the attention of the United States Navy either, because look, there's been massive scrutiny over the past few months, of course, on that Red Sea region, precisely because of the Houthis, and they're attacking shipping in the Red Sea. So hard to see how they pull off an invasion, but some kind of limited incursion where, again, Houthi elite commandos, what passes for elite in their view, make their way to some neighboring country and try to come across the border into Israel and cause havoc. That's not entirely outside the realm of possibility. God forbid, again. But let's continue here, because it gets interesting, because a Houthi spokesman weighed in as well. And by the way, before we dig into that, and new threats by the Houthis against shipping, which if you're watching this, and look, we have viewers on all 7 continents. I like to say we've even got some penguins in Antarctica on their iPhones watching us. But no matter where you are, this will ultimately come back and affect you, because global shipping, that's an economic issue. And what the Houthis are doing in the Red Sea is causing havoc on that front. That touches all of us at the end of the day. The economic, everything's interconnected now. It's a global economy. And if shipping goes by the wayside, essentially, it's going to affect all of us eventually, and our home economies. So this is a serious, serious issue, what the Houthis have done in the Red Sea. And to me, it's funny, before we came on and started, one of my colleagues said, these guys are crazy. And they just won't stop. And that's really true. I was with a senior Israeli official about 2 weeks ago in DC. I received a briefing, myself and some other journalists. I shared it here on the channel. But the official said these people are insane. They are insane. They're maniacs. They are religious, jihadist, Islamic fanatics. And they're not going to stop until they're crushed. And this official said that Israel does have a plan to do exactly that, to crush the Houthis. More on that in a minute, and more on the Houthis' new plan and what the spokesman said they're planning. But quick reminder, I said all 7 continents we are viewed. We indeed are. It's in all seriousness, look, it's at a point here in the channel where we've grown tremendously. We're at nearly 1.1 million subscribers. For such a time as this, it goes without saying, we love for you to join us here every day as watchmen and women on the wall. So be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell so you get alerts every time a new video is posted. Current events, breaking news, mainly from Israel and the Middle East, but we're hitting the whole geopolitical sphere, and we're doing it from an unapologetically biblical perspective. Imagine that. So if you like what you're hearing, be sure to subscribe. I don't like what I'm hearing from the Houthis, and rarely have I ever liked anything I heard from the Houthis, needless to say. But here's more. The Houthis have continued. We're talking about the invasion, of course, if you're just joining us, their suggested invasion. The Houthis also have continued a campaign of assaults on commercial ships in the Red Sea, any shipping linked to Israel. And here's where it gets timely and interesting. The Houthis on Sunday, just yesterday, announced an escalation of their actions. They stated that any vessel owned by companies doing business with Israeli ports could be targeted. In a televised address, Houthi military spokesman Yahya Saree, not to be confused with Yahya Sinwar, stated that this new policy, this new measure, was part of the Iranian-backed rebel group's self-declared 4th phase of operations against Israel in response to the ongoing conflict in Gaza. He warned that vessels would face attacks, regardless of their nationality or destination, if they were associated with Israel and failed to heed the Houthis' warnings. He urged nations with interest in the region to pressure Israel to end its war in Gaza and lift the blockade there. And he linked any reduction in Houthi attacks to Israel doing that. What he's saying is, and they've been saying this all along, as long as Israel continues to fight Hamas in Gaza and seek to win that war, then the Houthis will continue their attacks. And folks, look, I mean, in the past year, Israel has carried out some devastating airstrikes against Houthi positions, including that Hodeidah port repeatedly. That's the main, it seems, replenishment port for Iranian weapons to be shipped in to the Houthis and to have them rearm. But I mean, the United States as well carried out a major bombing campaign in late winter, early spring under President Trump. And none of that seems to have deterred the Houthis. Now, I've been saying all along 2 things. Number one, to really, I think, just, and look, again, the senior Israeli official who we met with about 2 weeks ago, he said, again, we're committed to destroying the Houthis. If that is the end goal for Israel, destroy the Houthis. And I don't see why it wouldn't be. Look, folks, Israel can't live like this. The Houthis are essentially the last man standing. Hezbollah and Hamas have been smashed. They're licking their wounds. There are shells of their former selves. Assad is gone in Syria. The Iraqi militias have been quiet, although Ismail Ghani, the head of the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps Quds Force, apparently met with those Iraqi militias in the past few days, but they've been quiet overall. The lone active jihad that's directly affecting Israel every day. And look, Hamas still fighting in Gaza, but the only entity right now that is in Iran's ring of fire, which is basically a smoldering heap of ruins right now, the only entity in that ring of fire that's still kicking on a practically daily basis and waging offensive jihad against Israel and against shipping, as we said, in the Red Sea, it's the Houthis. On a practically daily basis, it seems, launching ballistic missiles at Israel and drones Look, Israelis can't live this way. 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. Israelis are jumping into getting out of bed, grabbing their babies, their kids, and running into bomb shelters because of these incoming Houthi missiles. Now, most of them are shot down. The vast majority are shot down by Israel's incredible air defense systems. But some have gotten through, and there's been fatalities. So, and this is senior Israeli official who's close to the prime minister who I spoke to said, look, we can't live like this. Hamas has been neutered, Hezbollah neutered, the Iranian regime licking its wounds right now after the 12-day war. Something's got to be done about the Houthis. We can't live like this. No nation could. And although the Houthis are at least 1,000 miles away in Yemen, we got to do something. So what does Israel do? Again, all the bombing of the ports and different Houthi positions and Houthi weapons arsenals, it hasn't worked yet. The Sana'a International Airport, they're still firing the missiles. So what do? I think number one, you got to cut the head off of the snake. Now, the ultimate head of the snake is Iran. You want to send a message to the Houthis? Continue to send a message to Iran. Strike some kind of Iranian asset and say, unless you call off the wolves, unless you call off your proxy, the Houthis, and cease and desist, then we're going to strike you directly, Iran, the head of the snake. That's number one. And never has Iran been more vulnerable than it is right now. We'll discuss that more in a minute. But number two, you hold the head of the snake accountable. But what about the more localized head of the snake? The Houthi leadership. Look, Hamas, Hezbollah, the Iranian regime itself, etc. In each case, Israel has gone to the head and cut the head off those respective rings of fire. They've taken out the leaders of these organizations. And that has just been a devastating death blow to these organizations. You got to do the same in Yemen with the Houthis. Now, I'm not warmongering, please, or don't accuse me, you're a warmonger. No, I want to end this war. And it's a war in Yemen. Look, they have declared war against Israel, clearly. This was a de facto declaration of war by this Houthi spokesman yesterday. They're not going to stop until they're crushed and soundly and roundly defeated. And Israel's starting to realize, oh man, we're basically in a state of war with the Houthis in Yemen. So if you want to end that war quickly, Exhibit A, Lebanon, Hezbollah, Nasrallah was killed, Hezbollah unraveled back in late September. So you want to shorten this war with the Houthis and stop the Houthis from firing at Israeli civilians on a practically daily basis, then if you're Israel, you're going to have to find a way to target Houthi leadership. And secondly, and this senior Israeli official said, this may involve some kind of ground operation. Relax. No one's calling for an invasion of Yemen. No one's suggesting that. But could you see, I was talking earlier about a Houthi raid into Israel. I think it's unlikely, but expect the unexpected in today's Middle East. And apparently they have plans. They're training for exactly that, as we discussed earlier in this live stream. But what about some sort of Israeli special forces or commando raid into Yemen? That's possible. That's a possibility. But I think you hold Iran accountable, you hold the Houthi leadership accountable. At the end of the day, in terms of a ground operation, some kind of commando raid, it makes sense for Israel, I believe. And Israeli military planners know a lot better than me, obviously. But it makes sense in that, and we've talked about this over the past few weeks, how do you crush the Houthis? And again, that's the stated aim of Israel, crush the Houthis. How do you do that when it's such a Yemen is such a vast, rugged, mountainous terrain, desert, caves, places unexplored probably by the human race? Yet they can roll a ballistic missile launcher out, fire it, and then roll a launcher back into some hidden place, some kind of cavern or cave. How do you stop that with airstrikes alone when there's so many hiding places? Look, it's a very unpleasant prospect to have even one set of boots on the ground, or some special forces guys, Israeli special forces guys in Yemen. No one wants that. But if your goal is to destroy the Houthis and stop the missiles, that seems like it may be a necessity. We shall see. I think really, folks, one of the big stories for the second half of 2025 is how that goes, how that story all goes in Yemen. And what's Israel going to do? And I can tell you that Prime Minister Netanyahu, when he was in D.C., actually almost 3 weeks ago now with President Trump, the Israelis were pressing the U.S., look, we got to do something about the Houthis because, look, they are doubling down on their threats and their efforts to attack global shipping. Now it's any nation that does business with Israel. I mean, hello, I'm American. That includes the United States. That includes non-Western nations. It's got to stop. And we've said this time and time again, evil is relentless. You know my feelings on this because it's demonic. I mean, the Houthis are a demonically driven organization, no doubt. And demonic organizations live to kill, to maim, to murder, to cause mayhem. It's all they know. They're not going to change their spots. So as a result, you must crush them. Think of the Nazis during World War II. You didn't leave a remnant of Nazis to run Germany and to coexist. No, you crushed a fanatical demonic ideology. The same must happen ultimately with this Iranian axis and the Houthis in particular. And I don't have their motto in front of me, but their official motto talks about death to the Jews, death to Israel, actually a curse upon the Jews, death to Israel, death to America. Allah is the greatest. Jihad is our way. Other than that, they're perfectly reasonable, I assure you. But that's the Houthis' official motto. That's what you're dealing with. That must be crushed. We talked about the head of the snake, the Iranian regime. President Trump today with Keir Starmer, the British Prime Minister in the UK, after securing, a pretty impressive trade deal with the European Union. After all the bluster about, oh my gosh, a trade war and Trump's tariffs are horrible. I told you here months ago, be patient. All the scaremongering, Trump tariffs are going to destroy America's economy. Wow. I don't know. He just secured massive deals with Indonesia, Japan, and the Philippines last week. Now the European Union, a few weeks ago, the UK, and back in May, he secured trillions of dollars of investment from the Saudis, Qatar, and the UAE. I don't know. Seems like his policies economically are doing pretty darn well for the American people, the American worker, American businesses, but I digress. He was with Starmer today, and he warned about Iran. Iran, Trump said, has been sending out, quote, nasty signals, and any effort for Iran to restart its nuclear program would be immediately crushed. Trump said, quote, we wiped out their nuclear possibilities. They can start again. If they do, we'll wipe it out faster than you can wave your finger at it. Said it like only Trump can. God bless him. And Iran is now saying, Iran's foreign minister, that they will react in a more decisive manner against the U.S. and against, I presume, Israel, if Israel and or the U.S. strikes Iran. Folks, look, I think it may be inevitable that Israel in tandem with the U.S. once again strikes Iran once again. Not because they want to, but because the Iranian regime, like the Houthis, despite the Houthis being smashed over the past year, the Iranian regime has not gotten the memo. They continue to make noise about they're not going to give up their uranium enrichment program. They're going to restock their ballistic missiles, et cetera. That's a non-starter for Israel. And with Iran so weakened right now, with their ring of fire smashed and really incapable of doing much outside of the Houthis, it seems, or unwilling to do much because they're so scared right now of Israel's response. And yes, scared is the operative word. And with Iran's air defenses destroyed, with its ballistic missile capabilities really diminished spectacularly by the IDF, this would be an opportune time, needless to say. If you want to send a further message, do so now if you're Israel or you're President Trump. You will not start the nuclear program. We will not allow you under any circumstances. Don't even think about it. Because again, when you're demonically evil, you're blinded. You have blinders on, evil demonic blinders. And they may very well try to restart that nuclear program. So do not be surprised if you see maybe some limited airstrikes in the next few weeks or months against Iranian installations. This is what happens when you're dealing with truly wicked, wicked people. Not the Iranian people themselves. We're talking about the Iranian regime. The Iranian people are the main victims of this regime. And I like to say it when we talk Iran a lot. I like to end with encouragement here. that Iran is a Bible land. You may shake your head and say, what? They live under the Quran. No, this was once a Bible land. Esther, the Iranian people never wholesale followed the Bible. I'm not saying that. But major biblical events unfolded in ancient Persia, which is modern day Iran. Esther, Mordecai, Cyrus, Darius, all from your Bible, all took place in modern day Iran. That was ancient Persia. So be encouraged that God is not done with that land. And by the way, key point here, the world's fastest growing church, largely underground, actually exclusively underground, is in Iran. Jesus is coming into the hearts of Iranians. They're embracing Jesus. It's an amazing untold story. So be encouraged. Stay in prayer for the people of Iran. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem, of course. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, God bless you. And remember, never hold your peace.
Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the Watchman Newscast. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss an upload, and tap the bell icon so you're notified every time a new video is posted. And don't forget to share your thoughts, insights, and comments below. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here tomorrow.